So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the one adventurer the goddess of beauty couldn't charm. Naruto x Freya DanMachi. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. The Azure Stranger and the Golden Gaze. The air of Orario, thick with the scent of roasted street food, damp dungeon earth, and the metallic tang of fresh magic stones, usually pulsed with a predictable rhythm. Adventurers, boisterous or bruised, flowed from Babel's monumental maw. Merchants hawked their wares with practiced cries, their voices weaving into the constant hum of a city that devoured and regurgitated fortunes daily. Today, however, a subtle dissonance rippled through this familiar symphony. It wasn't a roar from the dungeon, nor the clash of familia banners, but something far more unsettling to those whose senses were attuned to the city's subtle energies. Down a cobbled side street, where the shadow of Babel's colossal form stretched long and cool even at midday, a small crowd had gathered. Not the usual gawking at a returning hero or a brawling band of low rankers, but a hushed, almost reverent attention. At the center of it all stood a figure utterly out of place. His clothes, though simple, an orange jacket over a dark shirt, practical pants, and sturdy boots, were unmarred by the grime and wear that usually clung to anyone who'd spent more than an hour in Orario. What truly drew the eye, however, was not his attire, but the serene confidence that radiated from him like a quiet beacon. His hair, a striking sun-kissed blonde, was wild yet somehow contained, framing a face with clear, vibrant blue eyes that seemed to take in everything without judgment, yet miss nothing. He moved with an effortless grace that spoke of power held perfectly in check, like a predator at rest. "Oi, watch it, old man." A gruff voice cut through the murmuring. A burly adventurer, his armor dinged and scarred, was shouldering his way through the onlookers, a large sack of monster drops slung over one shoulder. He was clearly in a hurry, likely trying to beat the guild's rush. His path intersected sharply with that of a wizened street vendor, whose rickety cart, laden with baskets of fresh fruit, wobbled precariously on the uneven stones. A collision seemed inevitable, promising a cascade of bruised apples and shattered clay pots. Before anyone could shout a warning, before the adventurer could even register the impending disaster, the blonde stranger moved. It wasn't a blur of motion, nor an exaggerated leap. It was simply there. A hand, calloused but gentle, appeared as if from nowhere, stabilizing the cart's listing wheel with a feather-light touch. Simultaneously, his other hand, with the casual precision of a seasoned artisan, brushed against the passing adventurer's heavy sack. The adventurer, mid-stride, stumbled slightly. As if he'd hit an invisible air current, his momentum momentarily disrupted just enough to swing wide of the cart. No contact, no crash. The fruits remained in their baskets, the pots intact. The adventurer grumbled something unintelligible, too focused on his destination to truly register what had happened. He merely corrected his course and continued on, oblivious. The old vendor, however, eyes wide behind wrinkled lids, stared at the blonde stranger. What? How? He stammered, his voice thin with disbelief. Naruto Uzumaki, for it was he, offered a small, easy smile. His voice, when he spoke, was surprisingly warm. A low baritone that carried a hint of distant winds. "Easy does it, Gramps. Always look where you're going, His accent was peculiar. Not the clipped common tongue of Orario's market, nor the lilting cadence of the elves, nor the guttural rumble of the dwarves. It was a blend, subtly inflected, carrying echoes of places utterly unknown to these lands. The vendor could only nod, still mystified. Naruto simply gave a small bow, then continued his stroll, the crowd parting almost instinctively for him. His eyes, those astonishing blue depths, calmly absorbed the details of the city. The chipped paint on a tavern sign, the hurried whispers of two cloaked figures in an alley, the intricate carvings on Babel's base, stretching impossibly high into the azure sky. There was no wonder in his gaze, no overt awe, only a deep, almost ancient understanding. He wasn't seeing Orario, he was perceiving it, every layer and nuance, as if it were a familiar scroll unfolding before him. High above the bustling streets, within the opulent, shimmering confines of Folkvanger, the seat of the Freya familia, a pair of eyes the color of pure gold watched. Freya, the goddess of beauty, reclined on a silken divan, a single, perfectly manicured hand resting on her chin. Her gaze, usually alight with an almost predatory curiosity, was now narrowed, a faint crease marring the perfection of her brow. An anomaly, she murmured, her voice like liquid moonlight. Curious, utterly so. Standing silently beside her, towering and powerful, was Ottar, the king of the boars. Her captain and the strongest adventurer in Orario. His immense form was a stark contrast to Freya's delicate grace. He did not speak, merely waited. Freya's gaze was fixed on a scrying orb, its surface swirling with ethereal light, displaying a clear, live image of the blonde stranger calmly walking through the market. She'd sensed him the moment he stepped within Orario's outer walls, a unique and vibrant soul spark that sang with an intensity she hadn't encountered in centuries. Her fascination, her divine charm, an innate ability that could bend gods and mortals alike to her will, had instinctively reached out. And it had failed, utterly, not merely resisted, but as if it had struck an impenetrable, serene void. It was an experience so unprecedented it was almost jarring. He felt nothing, she mused, her golden eyes glinting with a dangerous fascination. No pull, no recognition, not even the slightest ripple of disturbance. As if my very existence meant less than the breeze upon his cheek. A soft, almost imperceptible tremor of pique ran through her, quickly replaced by a profound curiosity. Send out the scouting party. I want eyes on him. Discreet eyes. And I want to know everything. His origin, his intentions, every single thought that passes through that mind. Ottar, as always, merely bowed his head. As you command, Freya-sama. His voice was a deep rumble, devoid of emotion. He turned to leave, his heavy boots making barely a sound on the plush carpets. Freya's gaze remained on the scrying orb, a small, enigmatic smile playing on her lips. Naruto Uzumaki, she whispered, tasting the foreign name, a new color for my collection. Or perhaps, a color that will illuminate even my own. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet. As Naruto found himself on the fringes of the West District, the grand thoroughfares gave way to narrower streets, the opulent shops replaced by smaller, more weathered storefronts. He paused near a dilapidated church, its stone walls crumbling in places, its once stained glass windows now patched with crude wood. A faint, almost desperate energy pulsed from within. Excuse me, mister. A small, nervous voice piped up from beside him. Naruto turned, his gaze softening. Standing there was a tiny goddess, her form petite, almost childlike, yet her eyes held an earnest determination. Her dark twin-tail hair bounced as she clutched a small, crudely painted sign that read, Hestia familia, adventurers wanted. All welcome. She wore a simple white dress adorned with a blue ribbon, and her overall demeanor was one of barely contained anxiety. This was Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, notorious for her struggling familia. Naruto had heard snippets of gossip about her while wandering the city, a goddess with a heart too big for her dwindling funds, fiercely protective of her lone, rapidly growing adventurer. Can I help ya, little lady? Naruto asked, a genuine smile easing her tension slightly. Hestia puffed out her chest, trying to appear more imposing than her diminutive stature allowed. I'm not little. I'm a goddess. The great Hestia. Her voice squeaked on the last word, betraying her nervousness. And yes, you can help. Are you an adventurer? A strong one. My familia. We need members. We need brave souls to venture into the dungeon. We really need members. Her voice tapered off into a pathetic whine, her eyes welling up slightly. Naruto chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that made Hestia blink in surprise. Well, I guess I'm an adventurer now, or will be. Once I get signed up with the guild. And strong. Yeah, I'd like to think so. He reached out, not to pat her head as many might, but to offer a firm, respectful handshake. Name's Naruto Uzumaki. Just got into town. Hestia stared at his outstretched hand for a moment, surprised by the directness and lack of condescension. Most people, especially other gods, either ignored her or treated her like a child. She hesitantly shook his hand. Hestia. It's nice to meet you, Naruto. You're very direct. Only way to be, Naruto replied, his smile unwavering. So, great Hestia, what exactly do you need help with right now? Beyond just recruiting, I mean. Seems like there's more going on. His gaze flickered to the crumbling church. Hestia's shoulders slumped. It's the landlord. And the suppliers. We're behind on rent for the church, and our usual supply lines are, well, they've dried up. No one wants to deal with a struggling familia. And my Bell, he's working himself ragged trying to make ends meet. But it's just not enough. Her voice cracked with genuine distress. If we don't get these supplies, and pay a portion of the rent by morning, we'll lose our base. And Bell, he'll be so sad. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly, the easygoing demeanor giving way to a quiet intensity. He hated to see people suffering, especially those trying their best. Supplies? Huh, what kind? And how much do you need for the rent? Hestia's eyes widened. Why you'd help? Really? It's a lot. For the rent, we need 500,000 valis for the first installment, and for supplies, a cart full of mid-grade potions. Some new armor repair kits, and a few dozen monster knives for new adventurers if we ever get them. It's normally impossible to get without credit. Naruto stroked his chin, a thoughtful look on his face. 500,000, huh? And a cart of supplies. Tell you what, Hestia-sama. He grinned. How about I get you that rent, and enough basic supplies to keep you afloat for a while? Consider it a joining bonus. On one condition. Hestia gasped, her eyes practically sparkling. A joining bonus. Really? Her previous anxieties vanished, replaced by an almost manic hope. What condition, Naruto? Anything. Simple. Naruto said, his gaze firm but kind. You gotta promise to keep working hard, and never give up on your familia. And if I join, you treat everyone here like family. No favoritism. No cutting corners. Deal. Hestia's eyes welled up again, this time with tears of overwhelming relief and gratitude. Deal. Oh, Naruto, you're a godsend. Literally, she practically bounced on the balls of her feet. Naruto's grin widened. All right then, Hestia-sama. Let's go sort this out, shall we? Where's the nearest guild branch that handles these sorts of things? As Naruto, with Hestia trailing behind him like an excited shadow, walked away, neither noticed the cloaked figure observing them from a rooftop across the street. A member of Freya familia, reporting diligently back to Folkvanger. The report would be succinct. Subject shows unusual altruism and a disconcerting ability to acquire large sums of valis without apparent effort. Engaging directly with the Hestia familia. Goddess Hestia is visibly elated. No signs of charm or influence from her end. The guild hall was a beehive of activity, even in the late afternoon. Adventurers queued to register monster drops, apply for quests, or complain about their stats. Naruto and Hestia cut a curious pair, the serene, powerful blonde man, and the diminutive, almost frantic goddess. Just give them this contract, Naruto. Hestia whispered, thrusting a pre-written familia agreement into his hand. It's standard. You just need to sign, and they'll update your status. Naruto took the parchment, his eyes scanning the document with surprising speed. His mind, honed by years of intricate political treaties and coded messages, processed the fine print instantly. He noticed the standard clauses about loyalty to the familia, sharing earnings, and adherence to guild law. All fair enough. But he also noted the subtle implications of the fauna, the divine blessing that would be etched on. To his back, it would connect him directly to Hestia, her growth influencing his own, and vice versa. It was a symbiotic relationship, a familial bond far deeper than a mere contract. He understood. It was a commitment, not a transaction. All right, he said, taking the quill offered by the reception clerk. He dipped it in ink, his signature precise and deliberate, Naruto Uzumaki. The moment the ink dried, a faint, warm glow enveloped his back. Hestia, standing on tiptoes, watched with bated breath as the familiar lines of a fauna appeared. It was the simple, elegant design of the Hestia familia emblem, followed by the flowing script that denoted his stats. What surprised the guild clerk, and indeed, Hestia herself, was the sheer volume of information that appeared. It wasn't just basic stats. It was a profound, almost overwhelming amount of experience points, reflecting a lifetime of accumulated battles, growth, and wisdom that transcended the typical dungeon-bound adventurers. Naruto, Uzumaki familia, Hestia level 1 initial registration level, but the raw values beneath were astonishing. Strength S999. Endurance S999. Dexterity S999. Agility S999. Magic S999. Luck I0. Abnormal resistance I0. Escape I0. Skills Pathfinder's Grace. Unparalleled adaptability and innate understanding of environments, negating penalties from unknown terrain, unique sensory perception, and increased learning speed for new abilities. Grants immunity to charm, illusion, and mind-altering magic. Unwavering will. Tremendous mental fortitude and emotional resilience. Enhances leadership and inspirational presence. Prevents fear, paralysis, and discouragement. Sage's insight. Accelerated growth in all aspects of knowledge and skill. Allows for rapid analysis of complex situations and intuitive problem solving. Ether weave. Unique affinity with universal energy, mana ether. Allows for precise, flexible manipulation of raw energy for diverse effects, e.g. enhanced physical attacks, defensive barriers, elemental manipulation, healing, sensory expansion. Can be channeled through various forms of combat. Charisma unbound. Naturally attracts trust, loyalty, and admiration. Improves diplomatic interactions and persuasion. Nine-tailed resilience. Hidden, sealed. A deep, latent ability yet to be fully registered by the Falna system, hinting at something beyond normal mortal capabilities, vaguely sensed by the system as extreme regenerative capabilities and overwhelming spiritual energy. The guild clerk, a seasoned veteran who had seen thousands of Falnas, gaped. His eyes darted from the level 1 inch to the S999 across the board. This is impossible, he croaked, dropping his quill. A level 1 with maxed out base stats. And those skills. Pathfinder's Grace. Unwavering will. Ether weave. What in the name of the gods is this? Hestia, initially just beaming, now peered closer, her jaw slowly dropping as she read the impossible numbers. SSS 999. She shrieked, her voice echoing through the guild hall. My Bell-kun, he's barely at D rank strength. How can you be level 1 with maxed S stats? Naruto merely chuckled, a hand scratching the back of his head. Well, like I said, I just got here. Guess my experience translates a little differently, huh? He shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He understood the Falna system was converting his innate, dimension-spanning abilities into its quantifiable metrics, and apparently, it couldn't quite contain him. The leve L1 inch was merely the system's way of categorizing him as a fresh entrant, unable to truly reflect the depth of his power. The commotion drew attention. Other adventurers and guild staff began to gather, craning their necks to see the outrageous Falna. Whispers, then murmurs, then outright exclamations filled the hall. A cheat. Impossible. Gods don't bless like that. Who is this guy? Naruto ignored the rising clamor, focusing on the second part of his promise. All right, Hestia-sama, about those funds and supplies you needed. Let's get that sorted. He then calmly pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden frog wallet from his jacket. With a practiced motion, he tapped it. A shower of valis, the currency of Orario, began to pour out, a seemingly endless stream of gold, silver, and copper coins. It clattered into the guild's payment receptacle with a mesmerizing cascade, quickly reaching and surpassing the 500,000 mark. The pile swelled, spilling over the edges, creating a tearing mound that drew even more astonished gasps. There's the rent, Naruto stated, gesturing to the overflowing pile. And here's a little extra for a rainy day, maybe some better provisions for your familia. And for those supplies, can you tell me where your usual supplier is? I'll go have a word. Hestia was beyond speechless. She stared at the mountain of money, then at Naruto, then back at the money. Her eyes were wide, wet with tears of disbelief and relief. This wasn't just a godsend, this was a miracle. The guild clerk, momentarily forgetting his shock at the Falna, stared at the endless coins. Where did all that come from? Naruto merely winked. A little trick I picked up. Now, about those suppliers. The supplier, a corpulent human named Grom, sat behind a desk piled high with ledgers in a cramped Dusty office. He was in the midst of brusquely dismissing a junior member of the Hestia familia, a meek-looking girl named Lily, who was attempting to negotiate for a small batch of potions. "Look, girlie," Grom sneered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Hestia familia is a bad risk. No credit, no collateral, no future. Come back when your god actually has some coin or some real adventurers." He slammed a fist on the desk, making Lily flinch. "Now get out. I got real customers to attend to." Just then, the office door, old and creaky, swung open with a soft thud. Naruto stood there, Hestia peering anxiously from behind him. His presence filled the small room, his azure eyes fixing on Grom with an unwavering intensity. There was no anger in his gaze, no overt threat, but a profound, almost primal certainty that made Grom instinctively stiffen. "Mr. Grom, I presume." Naruto's voice was calm, but it held a subtle, unyielding weight that commanded attention. Grom, unnerved by the stranger's aura, narrowed his eyes. "Who the hell are you?" "This is a private establishment. Name's Naruto Uzumaki. I just joined the Hestia familia," Naruto stated, stepping forward. He glanced at Lily, who looked terrified, then back at Grom. "And I believe we have a small misunderstanding about a supply order." Grom scoffed, regaining a sliver of his bravado. "Oh, another one. Look, buddy, I don't care if you're the Ganesha familia's new strongman, Hestia familia don't pay their debts, and they don't get credit." End of story. Naruto simply reached into his pocket and placed a single, gleaming gold coin on Grom's desk. It wasn't a small one. It was a substantial piece, enough for several days' worth of common goods. "Consider this a down payment," he said, his voice quiet. "And a promise. The Hestia familia will pay. And from now on, they'll always be current. We simply need your cooperation." Grom eyed the coin, then Naruto, then the overflowing coin recep. Takla at the guild hall that news had already reached him about. His expression shifted from defiance to grudging calculation. A down payment. For what? Naruto's smile, gentle yet firm, held no room for argument. "For the full cart of mid-grade potions, armor repair kits, and those monster knives you mentioned earlier, Hestia-sama." He turned his head slightly towards Hestia, who blinked in Sue. Our prize that he'd remembered the precise details. Delivered to the Hestia familia church by sunset. And a standing order for regular supplies, paid in advance each week. Grom spluttered, caught betway. And his greed in the unsettling presence of this new adventurer. He had never encountered such a direct, confident, and frankly, unhinged individual. Maxed stats on a level 1. An endless wallet. It defied all logic. This is highly irregular. Grom blustered. "Perhaps," Naruto agreed, his eyes unblinking. "But then again, so am I. So, do we have a deal, Mr. Grom? Or shall I take my business, and the Hestia familia's future business, to your competitors?" The implication, though unstated, was clear. Naruto would ensure the Hestia familia thrived, and Grom would either profit from it or watch his rivals grow rich. Grom, a businessman at heart, finally swallowed. He picked up the gold coin, weighing it in his hand. It was genuine. This man, whatever he was clearly serious. Fine. A cart by sunset, and weekly payments in advance, you'll provide them. Every week, Naruto confirmed, his voice as steady as stone. "You just make sure the quality is good. My family deserves the best." Lily, watching from the corner, could only stare, dumbfounded. The impossible had just happened. Grom, the notoriously stingy supplier, had capitulated. She looked at Naruto with a mixture of awe and dawning hope. As twilight painted Orario in shades of rose and deep indigo, Naruto found himself back at the Hestia familia church. True to his word, a cart laden with supplies, pay. Rs only overseen by a surprisingly docile Grom, had arrived. The small familia, consisting of Belle Crenelle, the little rookie, and a few new, equally bewildered recruits, stared at the bounty with disbelief. Belle Crenelle, a young human with striking white hair and ruby eyes, approached Naruto, his hands clasped nervously. Naruto-san," he stammered, his voice filled with a mixture of shyness and profound gratitude. "Hestia-sama told me, thank you. Really, you've saved us." He bowed deeply, his white hair falling over his face. Naruto placed a hand on Bell's shoulder, a warm, reassuring gesture. No need for thanks, Bell. We're familia now. That's what family does. We look out for each other. His gaze was kind, seeing the raw potential and the earnest heart beneath the boy's timid exterior. You've been working hard. You deserve a break, and a chance to grow without constantly worrying about rent. Bell looked up, his eyes wide. He felt an inexplicable surge of warmth and confidence from Naruto's touch. A sensation far beyond simple encouragement. It was like a wellspring of quiet strength pouring into him. Hestia, bustling around, directing the unloading of the supplies with newfound vigor, paused to beam at Naruto. Oh, Naruto, you're the best. I knew it. This is just incredible. She practically vibrated with excitement. Bell-kun, come on. Let's get these supplies organized. We can start fresh tomorrow. Naruto watched them, a small, genuine smile on his face. This was what he sought. Connection, purpose, the joy of helping others thrive. He felt a familiar, quiet contentment settle within him. But as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery streaks, a pair of golden eyes watched from a distant rooftop. Freya, shish. He had been observing his every move since he'd signed with the Hestia familia. She saw his interaction with Grom, his easy way with Bell, his simple, profound kindness. And she watched his falna, glowing faintly beneath his clothes. A stark contrast to the divine, oppressive aura she usually felt from the objects of her interest. He chose the weakest, Freya mused, her voice a soft whisper in the gathering dusk. Not power, not influence, but the hearth. The fragile, overlooked hearth. A strange emotion, foreign and unsettling, stirred within her. She had sent her familia to observe, to report. She had even tried to provoke him with a subtle manipulation, hinting at financial woes for Hestia familia, anticipating a negotiation. But he had simply provided. He hadn't sought to bargain, to gain leverage, or to flaunt his newfound wealth. He had simply given, freely and without agenda. Her charm, her very essence of beauty and fascination, was utterly useless against him. It was maddening. It was exhilarating. He wasn't immune in the way someone might resist through sheer willpower. He simply didn't register it. It was as if his soul sang a different song, a melody so pure and vibra. That her alluring tune was merely background noise. Naruto Uzumaki, she whispered again, the name now laced with a possessiveness born not of simple desire, but of a profound, intellectual, and perhaps even spiritual hunger. You are truly the most fascinating soul I have ever encountered. A blank canvas, yet so impossibly brilliant. You will be mine, not by charm, not by force, but by understanding. Her golden eyes shone with a dangerous, unwavering intensity as the last light faded from the sky. The game had truly begun. And for the first time in centuries, Freya felt a thrill that transcended boredom and expectation. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Deep. The humid, earthy breath of the dungeon was a stark contrast to the lively, scented air of Orario above. Here, light was a precious commodity, often emanating from phosphorescent moss, adventurers' lanterns, or the eerie, pulsating glow of magic stones embedded within monstrous forms. The deeper one descended, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. A constant pressure hinting at the unfathomable depths beneath. For Naruto, however, it felt less like an alien realm and more like a familiar, if slightly unconventional, training ground. His senses, honed over a lifetime of navigating treacherous terrain and unpredictable opponents, instantly adapted to the labyrinthine tunnels and the subtle shifts in mana density. His first few forays into the upper levels with the Hestia familia were, to put it mildly, revolutionary. Bell Crenel, the little rookie, was already gaining renown for his rapid growth, but Naruto's presence amplified their efficiency tenfold. While Bell honed his developing skills against familiar monsters like Goblin and Kobold, Naruto operated with a quiet, devastating precision. He didn't charge recklessly. Instead, he moved with the flow of the dungeon, a whisper among the echoes. He would identify the most efficient paths, predict monster spawns with uncanny accuracy, and dispatch creatures with minimal effort. Conserving energy. His ether weave skill manifested as subtle, almost invisible bursts of energy that would enhance his strikes, create momentary diversions, or even form temporary Localized barriers to shield Bell from an unexpected attack. He never boasted, never sought the spotlight. He simply did. "Naruto-san, you always know where they're coming from," Bell exclaimed one afternoon, a mix of awe and bewilderment on his face, after Naruto had flawlessly anticipated a hidden hellhound ambush. The monster had exploded into ashes from a single, precisely aimed kick. Its magic stone rolling harmlessly to their feet. Naruto simply smiled, crouching to retrieve the stone. "Just a hunch, Bell. The dungeon has its own heartbeat, you just gotta listen closely." He tapped his temple playfully. What he didn't explain was how Pathfinder's grace allowed him to perceive the subtle vibrations in the stone, the minute changes in air currents, and the faint, almost imperceptible shifts in the monsters, killing intent long before they revealed themselves. Their hauls were immense, their progress astonishing. Even the seasoned guild staff, who had initially dismissed Naruto's ludicrous starting stats as an error, were now updating his development abilities and skill proficiencies with trembling hands. His magic stat, in particular, was evolving at an unheard of rate. Reflecting his innate mastery over ether weave, which the Falna system categorized as a form of magic. Deep within Folkvanger, Freya's golden eyes remained fixed on her scrying orb, watching Naruto's dungeon delves. The ease with which he moved, the efficiency of his combat, the way he effortlessly protected the small, burgeoning Hestia familia members, it was all a captivating display. Her previous intrigue had deepened into a profound, almost philosophical study. She noticed his absolute immunity to the dungeon's mind-altering miasma, a common hazard that could induce panic. Are illusions even in seasoned adventurers? His unwavering will seemed to shimmer, a quiet force field around his very being. "He does not fear," Freya murmured, her voice laced with a new kind of wonder. "He does not hesitate, he simply acts, and his growth, it is not growth as we know it, Otar. It is revelation." Otar grunted, a rare sound. He had dispatched several of his elite familia members to observe Naruto from a distance in the dungeon. Their reports confirmed Freya's observations. Naruto was operating on a different plane. He was not just strong, he was complete. "My goddess," Otar finally spoke, his deep voice rumbling. "Our scouts report unusual monster activity on the 18th floor. A mutated minotaur has appeared, larger and more aggressive than typical. It has already routed a few lower-rank parties." Freya's lips curved into a subtle smile. "Indeed. And where do our Hestia familia go next, Otar?" Otar understood. "The 17th, by their trajectory. They plan to challenge a few new monster types there tomorrow." "Excellent," Freya purred, her golden eyes glinting. "Let us see how our unique spark handles a true challenge. And if he can unite the disparate factions of this city, even when faced with pure, unadulterated danger." She wasn't simply setting a trap, she was creating a stage. The 18th floor, known as the middle floor, was typically a respite, a safe zone. Where adventurers could rest before descending further. It was here that the Riviera, a small, safe outpost, offered temporary reprieve. Today, however, Riviera buzzed with a nervous energy. The rapport of a mutated minotaur had spread like wildfire, causing both fear and a morbid curiosity. This wasn't just a bigger beast, it was described as having an unnatural cunning, striking at vulnerable parties before retreating into the deeper levels, leaving behind a trail of destruction and demoralization. Naruto, Bell, and a few other newly recruited, low-level Hestia familia members were making their way to the 17th floor when the tremors started. Not the usual dungeon rumbling, but a series of distinct, heavy impacts from below, accompanied by roars that shook the very stone. "What was that, Naruto-san?" Bell gasped, clutching the hilt of his dagger. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Something big, and angry. Sounds like it's close to Riviera." His sage's insight flared, giving him a quick, comprehensive understanding of the situation. This wasn't a random occurrence. There was a deliberate, almost intelligent malice to the roars. As they approached the entrance to the 18th floor, they found a chaotic scene. Adventurers, wounded and disheveled, were fleeing from the direction of Riviera, their faces pale with terror. "It's the Minotaur," one shouted, clutching a bleeding arm. "It's rampaging through the safe zone. We're trapped. It's too strong. Even a first-class party couldn't stop it." Another wailed, collapsing against a wall. Naruto's expression hardened. A safe zone under attack, innocence in danger. This wasn't just a monster hunt, it was a crisis. Bell, you and the others stay here, he ordered, his voice calm but firm. Help the injured. I'm going in. But Naruto-san. Bell protested, worried. No arguments, Naruto said, giving him a reassuring nod. Your growth is important, but so is protecting each other. I'll handle this. He moved, a swift, fluid motion, past the terrified adventurers and into the bustling, now fear-stricken outpost of Rivera. What he saw shocked even him. The small settlement was in disarray. Stalls were overturned, injured adventurers lay scattered. And in the center of the square, a colossal, blood-red minotaur, its muscles bulging, its eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence, was smashing its way through everything. Its roars were deafening, filled with a primal rage. It was significantly larger than any minotaur he'd ever seen, even in his past life, and its hide seemed unnaturally tough. Several groups of adventurers, including some from the powerful Loki familia and Ganesha familia, were already engaging it, but they were struggling. Their attacks barely seemed to scratch its hide, and its retaliatory swings were devastating, sending seasoned fighters flying like rag dolls. Among them, a flash of golden hair and a slender, impossibly fast sword caught Naruto's eye. Ice Wallenstein, the sword princess, moved like a dancer, her rapier a silver blur. She was fluid, precise, but even she was having difficulty piercing the beast's thick hide and keeping up with its unpredictable movements. Her usual stoic expression was strained, a hint of frustration in her eyes. Naruto didn't hesitate. He took a deep breath, his ether weave activating, a subtle, almost imperceptible surge of power rippling through his body. He wasn't going to fight it head-on. Not yet. He would observe, analyze, and then strike decisively. Ice gritted her teeth, narrowly dodging a crushing blow from the mutated minotaur's axe-like fist. Her lil, Rafaga, a potent wind magic blade, sliced across its leg, but the beast barely flinched, the wound shallow. This minotaur was different, faster, smarter, and its hide was like iron. She cool. Feel the frustration rising within her. Her comrades from Loki familia, Betloga and Tion Himura, were struggling to draw its attention, their usual tactics proving ineffective. Suddenly, a flash of orange. Not a reckless charge, but a strategic maneuver. A figure, blonde and agile, darted past her, moving with a grace that rivaled her own. He didn't engage the minotaur directly. Instead, he moved around its flanks, striking at its joints, its tendons, its less armored areas with blindingly fast, precise kicks and punches. Each strike, though not overtly powerful, seemed to leave a tremor. A subtle disruption in the minotaur's movements. He was like a surgeon, systematically debilitating the beast. One of his attacks, a simple, open palm strike to the minotaur's knee, sent a peculiar ripple of force through the monster's leg. The minotaur bellowed, not in pain, but in what seemed like bewilderment. Its leg buckled momentarily. It's trying to disrupt its balance. Ice realized, her eyes widening slightly. It was a simple, yet incredibly effective tactic against a heavy, charging foe. No one fought like this. They usually went for raw damage or vital points. This stranger was going for control. As the minotaur struggled to regain its footing, Naruto moved again, effortlessly weaving through the chaos. He appeared next to a struggling Ganesha familia adventurer, whose shield had splintered under a minotaur's blow. Without a word, Naruto's hand shot out, not to attack, but to push the adventurer clear, simultaneously creating a shimmering, almost invisible barrier of ether that absorbed the residual shockwave from the minotaur's next attack. The barrier held for a split second, long enough for the adventurer to escape, before dissipating. What was that? The adventurer gasped, staring at the spot where the barrier had been. Ice saw it too. It wasn't magic as she knew it. It was something else, something fluid and responsive. The stranger wasn't just fighting, he was orchestrating. He was anticipating. He was leading without saying a word. The minotaur roared again, finally frustrated by the elusive blonde. It charged, focusing its rage entirely on Naruto, ignoring the other adventurers. This was its mistake. Naruto didn't flee. He stood his ground, a calm, almost serene expression on his face. As the beast thundered towards him, he took a deep breath, his body tensing, not with fear, but with coiled power. He moved. It was a blur of motion, a dance of avoidance and counter-strike. He ducked under a wild swing, spun on his heel, and delivered a devastating uppercut to the Minotaur's jaw. The impact was not a blunt force, but a concentrated explosion of ether, focused into a single point. The Minotaur's head snapped back, and for the first time, a visible crack appeared on its seemingly impenetrable skull. It reeled, stunned. Before it could recover, Naruto was on it. He didn't use a sword, or an axe, or even a fist in the conventional sense. He flowed around the beast, striking with open palms, with the flats of his feet, each blow carrying that precise, disruptive force. He was targeting the magic stone within the Minotaur, not with raw power, but with concentrated internal vibrations from his ether weave. It was a technique designed to dismantle from within, to disrupt the very essence of the monster. Finally, with a powerful, two-handed strike directly to the center of the Minotaur's chest, a radiant surge of blue ether pulsed outwards from Naruto's hands. The blow was aimed not at the flesh, but at the heart of the monster's power. The Minotaur shrieked, a sound of agony and confusion, its enormous form beginning to glow with an unstable, internal light. Then, with a final, shuddering roar, the mutated Minotaur exploded. It wasn't a messy, bloody detonation, but a clean, shimmering burst of light and magic particles, leaving behind only a perfectly intact, unusually large, and pulsating magic stone. The air cleared, a strange stillness descending upon the stunned outpost. Silence. Then, a collective gasp from the adventurers who had witnessed the impossible. They had never seen a monster of that caliber defeated with such artistry. Ice, her rapier still clutched in her hand, stared at Naruto, who stood calmly amidst the fading motes of light, picking up the massive magic stone. Her analytical mind, usually so logical, struggled to categorize what she had just witnessed. It wasn't pure strength. It wasn't conventional magic. It was something entirely new, something breathtakingly efficient. And he had done it without a hint of ego. Without a single boast. He had simply seen the problem and solved it. Word of the mutated Minotaur's defeat by the Azure Stranger spread like wildfire throughout the dungeon, reaching Orario above within hours. The story, as always, grew in the telling. Some claimed he was a hidden level 7, others a god in disguise. The guild was in an uproar, desperately trying to get an official report. Back in Rivera, amidst the chaotic aftermath, Naruto calmly helped tend to the injured. He used his unique ether weave not just for combat, but also for its subtle healing properties, accelerating the recovery of minor wounds and easing pain. He did it without fanfare, simply moving from one person to the next, offering a quiet word of comfort. Ice found him kneeling beside a frightened child, gently bandaging a scrape. She approached him, her footsteps light, her expression unreadable. You defeated it," she stated, her voice soft, devoid of her usual flat tone. It wasn't a question, but an observation filled with a hint of wonder. Naruto looked up, his blue eyes meeting her golden ones. "Yeah, it was a tough one." He offered her a small, disarming smile. "You handled it well too. Sword Princess. Your rapier was like lightning." Ice blinked, surprised. Few people complimented her, fewer still truly saw her movements with such precision. Your fighting style. I have never seen anything like it." She hesitated, then continued, her gaze direct. "It was efficient. Beautiful." Naruto chuckled, scratching the back of his head. "Beautiful. Well, I just try to get the job done without making too much of a mess. Wasted movements are wasted energy, right? You used something other than magic," Ice observed, her analytical mind still trying to dissect his abilities. "Ether weave. Your fauna called it. Is it like mind?" "Something like that," Naruto replied, choosing to simplify. "It's my own flavor of energy. I can use it for all sorts of things, not just fighting." He gestured to the healing child. "Helping people, too." Ice was silent for a moment, absorbing this. Most adventurers focused solely on increasing their raw power or mastering a specific skill. He was versatile and kind. "Why did you help?" she finally asked, her eyes searching his. "You could have let us fight it." Naruto's smile softened. "People were in danger. That's reason enough for me. No one gets left behind if I can help it." His gaze held hers, open and sincere, devoid of the calculating ambition she saw in so many other adventurers. Ice felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she rarely experienced. It wasn't the thrill of combat, nor the satisfaction of growth. It was something deeper, something akin to comfort. She found herself wanting to spend more time with him, to understand the source of his unwavering calm, his inexplicable power, and his simple, profound goodness. I would like to spar with you, sometime, she blurted out, surprising even herself. It was the closest she came to extending an invitation. Naruto's eyes lit up. Oh, sounds like fun. Anytime, Sword Princess. I'm always up for a good training session. He paused, then added, a hint of genuine curiosity in his voice, you seem burdened, sometimes, Ice. Like there's a lot on your mind. Is everything all right? His question wasn't intrusive, it was genuinely concerned. Ice froze, her stoic facade cracking for a split second. No one had ever asked her that, not truly. They saw the Sword Princess, the strongest, the emotionless weapon. Not the girl haunted by her past. She quickly recovered, her expression reverting to its usual neutrality. I am fine, she said, her voice a little too stiff. Just thoughts. She felt a strange mixture of apprehension and an undeniable pull towards this man who saw through her defenses so effortlessly. Naruto didn't push. He simply nodded, his gaze understanding. All right, but if you ever want to talk, or just need a good ramen, let me know. Sometimes it helps to share the load, even with strangers who aren't so strange once you get to know them. He offered another warm smile. Ice, unaccustomed to such casual intimacy, simply gave a small nod, a faint blush dusting her cheeks before she turned and walked away, her mind swirling with unprecedented thoughts. Meanwhile, another set of eyes had been watching from the shadows. Lefia Voridis, a young, exceptionally talented elven mage from the Loki familia, had been part of Ice's party. She had witnessed Naruto's impossible feats firsthand. As a mage, she was keenly aware of the flow of mana and the intricacies of spellcasting. What Naruto had done defied every magical principle she knew. His ether weave was not just a skill, it was an entirely different system. Seemingly able to achieve anything. She had been tasked with providing support magic, but in the face of the Minotaur's rampage, she had struggled to keep up, her spells feeling weak and ineffective against its might. She admired Ice above all else, and seeing someone outshine her idol, even momentarily, was a confusing mix of awe and a faint, self-deprecating despair. Lefia watched as Naruto spoke with Ice, her heart fluttering. He wasn't just powerful, he was genuinely kind. She saw the way Ice subtly softened around him, a sight rarely witnessed. As Naruto offered his ramen invitation, Lefia felt a strange pang in her chest, a desire to be seen, to be acknowledged by this incredible individual. She felt her own magical talents, impressive as they were, pale in comparison to his boundless capabilities. Could she ever be strong enough, capable enough, to stand by someone like him? The thought both intimidated and thrilled her. She quickly retreated deeper into the shadows, a blush creeping up her elven ears. She had to learn more about him, and perhaps, somehow, grow stronger herself. Far above, Freya observed the aftermath with a satisfaction that bordered on glee. Naruto's performance had been exceptional, exceeding even her highest expectations. He had acted as a unifier, a protector, and a force of pure, decisive power. His interactions with Ice were particularly noteworthy. The usually aloof Sword Princess had shown an unprecedented level of curiosity and even a flicker of personal connection. He cleanses the dungeon of its monsters with the same ease he cleanses the city of its grime, Freya purred, her golden eyes alight. And he leaves a trail of light behind him. A true beacon. Ottar, who had returned from his duties, stood silently by. He had watched the Minotaur fight through a scrying orb as well. Even he, the strongest, felt a grudging respect for the sheer artistry of Naruto's combat. He is unlike any adventurer, Freya-sama, Ottar conceded. A rare admission for him. His methods are unique. Unique indeed, Freya mused, a soft, predatory smile spreading across her face. He is a puzzle, Ottar. A masterpiece waiting to be truly appreciated. My fascination grows with every breath he takes. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing slightly. Send word to some of the higher-level familias. Encourage them to observe his progress. Let his fame spread. Let the world see what a truly beautiful soul can achieve. She paused, then added, her voice dropping to a low, seductive whisper, and let us see if the light this pure soul can truly remain untainted when the shadows of Orario, and the desires of a goddess, truly begin to press upon it. Her obsession, previously a detached curiosity, was now blossoming into a potent, possessive longing. She wanted his essence, his untamed brilliance, to herself. The challenge was not to break him, but to possess the unbroken. The city slept, unaware of the subtle machinations unfolding above them. But in the depths of the dungeon, echoes of a new era of power and influence had already begun to resonate, carried on the very winds of change that Naruto Uzumaki brought with him. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. Whispers of the Guild and Ancient Echoes. The air within the guild hall usually hummed with the predictable symphony of commerce and conquest. But in the days following the mutated minotaur incident on the 18th floor, that hum had escalated into a persistent, buzzing drone of nervous speculation. Rumors about the azure stranger from the Hestia familia, his impossible fauna, his boundless vallis, his bewildering combat style, had transcended mere gossip and become a citywide phenomenon. Every adventurer, from the lowliest level 1 to the most esteemed first class, had an opinion, a theory, or a question about Naruto Uzumaki. This unprecedented anomaly sent ripples straight to the top. Oranos, the ancient, enigmatic god who oversaw the guild from his silent chamber beneath Babel, sensed the profound shift in the city's balance. Even he, who rarely interfered directly, recognized that this Naruto Uzumaki was a variable unlike any other he had encountered in millennia. His unique soul spark, initially felt as a faint anomaly, now resonated with a clear, undeniable strength, a force that seemed to both challenge and promise a new era for Orario. Ms. Aina Toole, the guild advisor typically assigned to Belle Crenelle, found her desk inundated with reports on Naruto. Her brow was perpetually furrowed with a mix of awe and professional bewilderment. His progress, his sheer capacity for growth and adaptation, was rewriting every known guild parameter. It was a statistical impossibility, yet the evidence, corroborated by countless eyewitnesses, was undeniable. Aina, have you seen this? Royman, the guild master, a pragmatic and often exasperated man, burst into her office, waving a newly submitted report. He just cleared an entire section of the 20th floor solo. Not with brute force, but by apparently diverting the monster flows and collapsing strategic passages. And his loot haul, it's meticulous. Every single magic stone accounted for, neatly sorted by type. Aina sighed, pushing a strand of brown hair from her face. I know, Master Royman. His efficiency is unsettling. He's like a force of nature, but with a tactical mind that borders on precognition. And his stats, they continue to defy all logic. He's still technically level 1, but his development abilities are off the charts. It's as if he's absorbing information and experience at an exponential rate. This is not just an adventurer, Aina, Royman said, his voice grave. This is a strategic asset, or a strategic threat, depending on how he chooses to wield his power. We need to understand him. And we need to ensure his loyalty to Orario, not just to a small, struggling familia. He paused, then continued, a glint in his eye. Summon him. Tell him the guild requires his presence for a discussion on dungeon management. Make it sound official, urgent. Let's see how he reacts to protocol. Naruto, still largely oblivious to the bureaucratic storm he was brewing, found the summons from the guild rather amusing. He had been planning a trip to a local ramen stand with Belle after their latest dungeon foray, but the guild's request had an undeniable tone of authority. He arrived at the designated meeting chamber, a large, well-appointed room typically reserved for high-level strategizing. Instead of a single clerk, he found himself facing a panel of stern-faced guild officials, including Royman himself, and a surprisingly nervous Aina. They were seated behind a polished mahogany table, stacks of reports, undoubtedly about him, piled high. Naruto Uzumaki, Royman began, his voice formal. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your prompt response. No problem, Naruto replied, his tone relaxed, yet subtly confident. He took a seat across from them, uninvited, leaning back slightly. His blue eyes calmly taking in each official, assessing their intentions. He could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken questions, the thinly veiled apprehension. "Mr. Uzumaki," Aina interjected, trying to keep her voice level, "your recent performance in the dungeon, particularly your handling of the mutated minotaur, has been extraordinary. Your growth statistics are unprecedented. We need to understand how you are achieving such rapid advancements." Naruto simply shrugged. "Just doing my job, learning as I go, you know. The dungeon's an interesting place. Lots to see, lots to fight. And I'm always looking for ways to be more efficient." His answer was too simple, too straightforward for their complex, data-driven minds. Royman cleared his throat. "We understand your unique approach. However, the guild operates on established parameters. Your fauna readings defy these parameters. Your ether weave is unlike any known magic. Your luck stat is 0. Yet you navigate dangers with impossible ease. We need transparency, Mr. Uzumaki, for the safety of other adventurers, and for the stability of Orario." Naruto's gaze remained steady. "Transparency. What's there to hide? I fight. I grow stronger. I help my friends. That's it. As for my abilities, they're just me. They've always been this way." He sensed their suspicion, their desire to categorize and control what they didn't understand. He had faced similar challenges countless times in his past life. "Your background, then," Aina pressed, desperate for some concrete information. "Where are you from? Which deity gave you your blessing?" Naruto paused. He couldn't exactly explain parallel dimensions or a different kind of life. So he opted for a half-truth, wrapped in disarming sincerity. "Let's just say I came from a place far, far away. And my blessing, it's ancient. From a different time, a different understanding of the world. It's what allows me to do what I do. It works fine with Hestia-sama's blessing. Though, doesn't it?" He gave a charming, innocent smile. The guild officials exchanged uneasy glances. The answer was unsatisfying, yet his demeanor made it difficult to press further without appearing overly aggressive. His charisma unbound was at play, subtly disarming their hostility. Royman shifted tactics. "Regardless of your origins, Mr. Uzumaki, your power is undeniable. Orario faces increasing challenges. Reports of more dangerous monster mutations, shifts in dungeon geography, and whispers of ancient forces stirring. We require adventurers of your caliber for crucial missions. We are preparing an expedition to the deep floors, beyond the 37th, to investigate these anomalies. Your participation would be invaluable." This was it, the subtle pressure. Naruto's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in calculation. This wasn't a request, it was a veiled demand. They wanted to harness him, to deploy him on their terms. An expedition to the deep floors, huh? Naruto mused aloud. Sounds like a big undertaking. Lots of risks, lots of lives on the line. He met Royman's gaze directly. "I'm willing to help, always. But I do things my way. No blind orders, no senseless sacrifices. And my familia comes first. If I go, my familia has to be adequately supported while I'm gone. And I'd need full access to all guild intelligence regarding these anomalies." Royman stiffened. This was unprecedented, an adventurer dictating terms to the guild master. "Mr. Uzumaki, the guild sets the terms for expeditions. This is a matter of strategic importance for Orario. And the lives of the adventurers are of strategic importance to me," Naruto countered, his voice firm, losing its easygoing quality. "If you want my full potential, you get my full cooperation. That means trust, and respect for my methods. I don't just follow orders, I lead. And I protect." He stood, his presence suddenly dominating the room despite his casual posture. "Take it or leave it, guild master. I'm not a weapon to be pointed. I'm an ally to be earned." Silence descended, heavy and thick. The officials looked at each other, then at Royman. Never had an adventurer spoken to them with such conviction and defiance. Yet without a hint of arrogance. He truly believed in his terms. Royman, after a long moment, slowly exhaled. He had seen powerful adventurers before, but none with such an unshakable will. He recognized that trying to coerce Naruto would be futile, and perhaps even dangerous. This man wasn't motivated by money or fame, but by something far more fundamental. Very well, Mr. Uzumaki, he conceded, a grudging respect in his voice. We will consider your terms. Return tomorrow. We will have a proposal for you regarding the expedition, tailored to your requirements. And we will provide all available intelligence. Is that acceptable? Naruto smiled, a genuine, powerful smile that seemed to light up the stuffy guild office. That sounds like a much better deal, Guild Master. I look forward to it. He nodded to Aina, who stared at him with wide, incredulous eyes, then calmly strode out, leaving a room full of bewildered, and somewhat chastened, guild officials. Far away, in the quiet, secluded sanctuary of her familia's hidden refuge, Ryu Lion sat meditating. The air was cool, scented with old parchment and the faint, sweet aroma of herbs. Her life as one of quiet vengeance and solitary justice, a deliberate withdrawal from the chaotic world of familias and the political machinations of Orario. She observed the city's underbelly from the shadows, striking against injustice where she saw it, a silent gale against the corruption. News of the Azure stranger had, of course, reached her. She dismissed most of it as exaggerated adventurer bravado. However, reports of his dismantling of the Black Scales criminal syndicate, a group she had been tracking for months, had caught her attention. Not just their defeat, but the method. He hadn't killed unnecessarily. He had systematically exposed their network, confiscated their ill-gotten gains, and ensured the victims were compensated. It was clean, uncharacteristically so. Her meditation was interrupted by the faint rustle of leaves outside her window. Her senses, honed by years of living on the edge, instantly detected an intrusion. Not hostile, but deliberate. She moved silently, a blur of motion, her daggers materializing in her hands. She opened the door to her refuge, stepping out into the cool evening air. Standing there, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight filtering through the trees, was Naruto Uzumaki. He held a small, woven basket, filled with what looked like fresh bread and some kind of fragrant stew. Evening, Naruto said, his voice calm, unfazed by her obvious readiness for combat. He didn't seem surprised to find her here. Heard this was your spot. Hope I'm not intruding. Ryu's eyes narrowed, her hand tightening on her dagger. You found me. Few can. Her voice was low, wary, her usual distrust evident. What do you want? Naruto offered the basket. Well, I heard you've been doing some good work in the shadows, cleaning up some of the mess that folks like the guild overlook. Figured you could use a warm meal. And maybe a hand. Ryu blinked, momentarily taken aback. She had expected threats, demands, recruitment attempts. Not kindness. I work alone, she stated, her voice sharp. I don't need help. Everyone needs help sometimes, Ryu, Naruto replied gently, his gaze unwavering. Even those who are strong enough to carry the world on their shoulders. You've been fighting a lot of battles by yourself. Seems like a heavy burden. And from what I hear about the Black Scales, you've taken on some serious risks. He paused, then continued, his tone shifting slightly. They were preying on the weak, exploiting families, ruining lives. The way you've been fighting them, it's admirable. But it's also dangerous, going it alone against so many. Ryu's composure faltered. He spoke of the very pain and frustration that fueled her solitary war. He saw the burdens she carried, not just the blade she wielded. What do you know of my burdens? She retorted, her voice hardening, though a flicker of vulnerability crossed her features. You are just another adventurer, seeking glory. Naruto's smile was knowing. I know enough. And I'm not here for glory, Ryu. I'm here for justice. Same as you. But justice doesn't have to be a lonely path. Sometimes, a little backup makes it easier. And safer. He held out the basket again. Just a meal, for now. No strings attached. Unless you count good company as a string. Ryu stared at him, truly stared. His blue eyes held no judgment, no manipulation, only a quiet, resolute empathy. He wasn't trying to charm her. He was simply being genuine. It was disarming. It was unsettlingly comforting. Her stomach, after days of meager rations, rumbled softly, betraying her. She lowered her daggers, though she didn't sheath them. Fine, she muttered, taking the basket with a reluctant grace. Her fingers brushed his, and she felt a fleeting, surprising warmth. "But don't expect me to join your little familia." Naruto chuckled. "Wouldn't dream of it, just thought we could be allies. Friends, even, against the darkness that lurks in the corners of this city." He sat down on a nearby stone bench, making himself comfortable. Clearly not expecting her to immediately leave. "Besides, this stew's amazing. I picked up the recipe from a nice old lady in the market. She almost choked when I paid her triple the asking price." He winked. Ryu, taking a cautious bite of the stew, found herself surprised by its rich flavor. She glanced at Naruto, who was humming softly, perfectly at ease in her secluded space. She still didn't trust him entirely, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel quite so alone. A seed of a different kind of alliance, one based on shared purpose and unexpected kindness, had been planted. Meanwhile, a less subtle drama was unfolding in the lavish, marble-floored halls of Folkvanger. Freya paced, her silken robes rustling like a whisper of discontent. Her golden eyes were fixed on a larger scrying pool, displaying Naruto's defiant interaction with the guild officials. "He refuses to be swayed by their petty demands," Freya purred, a dangerous delight in her voice. "He sets his own terms. Unyielding, uncompromising, magnificent." Atar stood by, as stoic as ever, but even he felt the palpable tension radiating from his goddess. "He now attempts to form alliances outside the established order," Freya continued, her gaze shifting to the image of Naruto confronting Ryu Lion. The Gale, the elusive lone wolf, now drawn into his orbit by a basket of stew and an appeal to justice. He does not seek to dominate her, but to walk alongside her. This is a subtle power, Atar, a far more potent one than mere might or charm. Freya felt a flicker of frustration. Her attempts to subtly influence his path, to push him towards challenges where her own familia could observe his reactions, were working. But his resistance to her charm, his refusal to even register her allure, remained absolute. It was maddening. He was the most beautiful soul she had ever encountered, yet he remained utterly oblivious to her own perfection. It was an insult, and a challenge. She found herself increasingly unable to ignore. He holds the guild in his palm, yet he chooses to treat a forgotten goddess with reverence and a lone rogue with respect, Freya mused, her voice low. He doesn't seek power, he is power, and he uses it to uplift those around him. This is what truly makes his soul shine, Atar. This pure, unadulterated goodness. A shiver ran through her, a mixture of desire and a strange, unfamiliar longing. "Freya-sama," Atar rumbled, "our scouts also report that Ice Wallenstein has been seeking out opportunities to spar with him. And the young elven mage, Lefia Voridis, is utterly captivated by his unique energy, trying to replicate it in her own magical studies." Freya's smile widened, a calculating, yet profoundly intrigued expression. "Excellent. The threads weave themselves. The stage is set for a grander drama. He is beginning to draw the very essence of Orario towards him, like moths to a flame. The guild, the adventurers, even the gods themselves. And he remains unaware of the depth of the ripples he creates." She rose from her divan, her form shimmering with ethereal light. Her golden eyes gleamed with a dangerous, yet undeniably potent desire. "No, Atar," she corrected herself, her voice a whisper that carried the weight of absolute resolve. "He is not unaware, he simply does not care for the mundane definitions of power. He only cares for his truth. And that, my dearest Atar, is the most beautiful thing of all." Her obsession was no longer just about acquiring a beautiful soul. It was about understanding it, about basking in its light, and perhaps even changing herself in its profound presence. The game was escalating, and Freya was ready to play. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. The Festival of Heroes and Hidden Agendas. The scent of roasted meat and sweet pastries mingled with the heady aroma of blooming night flowers as Orario transformed. The Festival of Heroes, a biennial celebration commemorating the city's foundation and its adventurers' enduring spirit, was in full swing. Banners of every familia fluttered from grand archways, street performers vied for attention with dazzling displays of acrobatics and minor magic. And laughter mingled with the clamor of the bustling crowds. For a few glorious days, the ever-present threat of the dungeon seemed a distant echo, replaced by a vibrant tapestry of joy and camaraderie. For Naruto Uzumaki, The festival was a curious spectacle. He moved through the throng, his senses absorbing the vibrant chaos with characteristic calm. He sampled street food with an appreciative nod, watched a puppet show with genuine amusement, and even found himself patiently posing for a few excited children who recognized him from the rapidly circulating tales of the mutated minotaur. His fame, far from being a burden, seemed to settle upon him like a comfortable cloak, allowing him to connect with the common folk who saw him as a genuine hero, not a distant, untouchable legend. Naruto-san, over here. Belle Crenelle, looking uncharacteristically festive in a new tunic, waved him over to a stall selling brightly colored trinkets. Hestia-sama wants to try that ring toss game. She says she has a divine touch for it. Hestia, indeed, was already arguing playfully with the stall owner, her small frame bristling with competitive energy. Just one more try. I almost had it that time. The ring just slipped. Naruto chuckled, joining them. Looks like someone's got a competitive streak, Hestia-sama. Of course, I do. Hestia declared, hands on her hips. My children deserve prizes. And this golden charm, it would look simply divine on Belle-kun. She pointed to a garish, overly shiny charm that looked suspiciously cheap. Naruto's smile was indulgent. He glanced at the game, a simple ring toss, but the rings were oddly weighted, and the prizes were clearly rigged for minimal wins. He could see the subtle tells in the stall owner's posture, the faint scent of a minor illusion spell clinging to the target. He sighed internally. Another small injustice. Mind if I give it a shot, Hestia-sama? Naruto asked, stepping up. He picked up a ring, feeling its uneven weight, and noted the almost imperceptible air current near the prize he aimed for. The stall owner, a large, shifty-eyed man, scoffed. Go right ahead, kid. Another chump, another coin. Naruto didn't reply. He simply tossed the ring. Not with force, but with an effortless flick of his wrist. The ring arced, seemed to float for a moment, and then, with an almost imperceptible ripple in the air, changed trajectory just enough to land perfectly around the golden charm. The stall owner's jaw dropped. Hestia cheered wildly, grabbing the charm. He did it. He did it. Naruto, you're amazing. Naruto simply offered the stall owner a knowing look, one that clearly conveyed, I know your trick. The man, pale, merely grumbled and handed over the prize. Naruto then, with another subtle move, nudged a second, simpler prize ring towards the booth worker, indicating it was for the next child who came along. The stall owner, bewildered, could only nod mutely. As they walked away, Hestia clutching her prize, she beamed up at Naruto. You're so clever, Naruto. How did you do that? Just saw the pattern, Naruto replied easily. Some folks rely on luck. I rely on seeing how things really work. That little charm's gonna look great on Belle. Belle, blushing, muttered his thanks. He was still trying to wrap his head around Naruto's effortless competence. The main event of the evening was the Orario Grand Spell Weaving Competition, held in the sprawling amphitheater. Mages from various familias showcased their arcane prowess, weaving intricate spells into dazzling displays of light and sound. The air thrummed with raw mana, and the crowd roared with appreciation. Loki Familia was, as expected, a dominant force. Their star mage, Leffia Voridis, was up next. She was known for her exceptional talent, a prodigy in concurrent chanting, capable of casting multiple spells simultaneously. Yet, as she ascended the stage, a nervous tremor ran through her. She could feel the immense pressure, the weight of her familia's expectations, and the piercing gazes of her rival mages. She was particularly aware of Riveriel Yo's Alf, the Nine Hell, Loki Familia's revered vice-captain and the strongest mage in Orario. Watching from the VIP section, Leffia idolized Riveria, and desperately wanted to impress her. Her chosen performance was a complex area of effect spell, a dazzling vortex of elemental energy designed to impress with both its power and its precision. She began to chant, her elven voice clear and melodious, mana gathering around her in shimmering ribbons. But her nerves were getting the better of her. A single word, a crucial component of the incantation, slipped. Her concentration wavered. The ribbons of mana flickered, destabilizing. A dangerous surge of uncontrolled energy began to build. From his vantage point in the crowd, Naruto sensed the immediate danger. He could see the mana twisting, threatening to lash out. Most people saw a beautiful, unstable spell. Naruto saw a potentially disastrous mana overload, capable of injuring the audience and, more critically, Lefia herself. She's losing control, Hestia gasped beside him, her eyes wide. Naruto didn't hesitate. He wasn't on stage. He couldn't physically intervene without causing a scene. But he had another way. He closed his eyes for a split second, focusing his ether weave. He couldn't cast her spell for her. But he could do something far more subtle. He projected a focused burst of his own calm, stable ether directly towards Lefia, a precise, imperceptible pulse. It wasn't a charm, or a command. It was a resonance, a gentle, guiding wave designed to steady her own wavering mana channels, like a tuning fork subtly correcting a discordant note. Lefia, mid-chant, felt it. A strange, serene clarity suddenly washed over her. The chaotic mana around her seemed to settle, to obey. The missing word for her incantation effortlessly popped back into her mind. It was as if a powerful, calm ND had reached out and steadied her trembling spirit. Her eyes snapped open, looking frantically through the crowd, trying to find the source. She saw Naruto, his eyes closed for a moment, then opening. Looking directly at her with a gentle, encouraging nod. A flush spread across Lefia's face, her heart hammering. She took a deep breath, her chant regaining its power and precision. The mana solidified, twirling into a magnificent, controlled vortex of wind, fire, and ice, culminating in a brilliant, harmless explosion of color above the amphitheater. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Lefia, flushed with triumph and relief, bowed, her eyes searching for Naruto. He simply gave her a thumbs up and a wide, genuine smile. Her face burned. He had seen her struggle, and he had helped her, subtly, anonymously, ensuring her success without taking any credit. It wasn't just admiration she felt for him now. It was a profound sense of gratitude, and a thrilling, terrifying pull. He saw her, truly saw her, and offered strength when she needed it most. Meanwhile, another, less glamorous event was taking place on the outskirts of the festival grounds, the unarmed combat exhibition. It was a brutal, no-holds-barred display of martial prowess, popular with adventurers and those who enjoyed a good brawl. Many powerful adventurers participated, demonstrating their raw physical strength. Among them was Wallenstein. She usually avoided such public displays, preferring the quiet precision of the dungeon. But today, she had agreed to a friendly exhibition match against a formidable war shadow from the Ganesha familia. A skilled hand-to-hand combatant. Her movements were fluid and precise, her strikes economical and devastating. Yet, her mind was subtly distracted. She found herself scanning the crowd, looking for a certain blonde head. She still hadn't gotten her sparring match with Naruto, and the thought nagged at her. Naruto, having left the magic competition, had indeed found his way to the combat exhibition. He observed Ice with keen interest. Her movements were beautiful, a testament to years of rigorous training. He noted her subtle tells, the slight overextension of a block, the momentary vulnerability after a particularly powerful strike. He saw how she struggled, minutely, with internalizing her attacks, holding back her true killing intent for an exhibition. Her opponent, the War Shadow, seized on one of these minute hesitations, launching a devastating combination of blows that caught Ice off guard. She stumbled, momentarily stunned, her aura flickering. The crowd gasped. Before the War Shadow could press his advantage, a voice, calm and clear, cut through the roar of the crowd. "Don't telegraph that jab, Ice. Keep your weight centered." It was Naruto. He had yelled the advice without thinking, an instinctive reaction. Ice, even in her dazed state, heard it. The voice was familiar, precise. Her instincts, honed over years of survival, processed the advice instantly. Her body, almost on its own, adjusted. She immediately corrected her stance, shifted her weight, and with a sudden surge of renewed focus, parried the next incoming strike with a force that surprised her opponent. The War Shadow, caught off balance, momentarily faltered. Ice seized the opening. Her rapier, still sheathed for the exhibition, became an extension of her fist, delivering a series of rapid, precise strikes that ended the bout with a clean, undisputed victory. She stood panting, sweat beading on her brow, her eyes darting to find Naruto. He was already smiling, giving her a nod of approval. After the exhibition, while signing autographs and trying to gracefully deflect praise, Ice found Naruto waiting for her by the arena exit. "You knew exactly what I needed to hear," she stated. Her voice soft. "Thank you." Naruto shrugged, a familiar gesture. "Just saw an opening. Your form's amazing, Ice. You just hold back too much, sometimes. You hesitate. You don't trust your own power fully." His gaze was direct, seeing through her carefully constructed walls. "It's okay to unleash it, you know. Even in a friendly match." Ice stiffened. His words struck too close to home. She did hesitate. She did hold back, especially the destructive force that was tied to her deepest desires. But how could he see it so clearly? And more importantly, how could he FFER such understanding without judgment? I still want to spar with you," she repeated, her voice firmer this time. "Soon. I want to understand. Anytime," Naruto agreed, his smile warm. "But no holding back next time, okay? Let's see what you're truly capable of." His challenge was not a taunt, but an invitation to genuine growth. Ice felt a thrill of anticipation, a longing for self-discovery that this man somehow awakened within her. As the Festival of Heroes reached its chaotic peak, a more sinister plot was quietly unfolding in the city's underbelly. Hidden beneath the joyous revelry, a clandestine meeting of unscrupulous merchants and rogue adventurers, organized by a shadowy figure known only as the Silken Spider, was taking place. Their agenda: to use the festival's chaos as a cover for a massive smuggling operation, bringing illegal monster parts and ancient, forbidden relics into Orario, and laundering vast sums of illicit valis. Naruto, whose Pathfinder's grace and age's insight extended beyond physical terrain to the subtle currents of human intention and societal corruption, had noticed the discordant notes amidst the festival's harmony. He saw the suspicious cargo movements, the furtive glances exchanged between seemingly disparate individuals, the sudden influx of strange valis into the black market. He didn't have solid proof, but his intuition, honed over countless high-stakes investigations, screamed danger. He couldn't involve the guild directly without concrete evidence, and the festival's security was stretched thin. This was a job for subtle intervention. He found Ryu Lion perched on a rooftop overlooking a secluded warehouse district, her gaze sharp, her usual quiet intensity radiating even in the low light of the city. She, too, had sensed something amiss. Her experience with the underworld gave her an intuitive understanding of such illicit activities. "Looks like we both crashed the same party, Gale," Naruto greeted, his voice low, stepping onto the rooftop beside her. Ryu didn't flinch, merely glanced at him. Trouble always follows the scent of easy money. And this festival is thick with it. Her eyes narrowed. Smugglers. And something old, powerful, being moved tonight. Forbidden relics, Naruto confirmed, his voice grave. And they're funneling the money through various shell corporations linked to a few corrupt nobles. The Silken Spider, I gather, is pulling the strings. Ryu's lips thinned. The spider, elusive, deadly. He controls a network that makes the black scales look like petty thieves. He hides behind 1,000 faces. Not anymore, Naruto said, a determined glint in his eye. He's making his move tonight. I've tracked the main convoy to this warehouse. But he'll have armed guards, and likely a few rogue adventurers on his payroll. Quote, "Then we strike," Ryu stated, her hand already on the hilt of her daggers. "Justice waits for no man." Indeed, Naruto agreed. But let's be smart about it. No need for a frontal assault if we can avoid it. This isn't just about stopping the convoy, it's about dismantling the network, capturing the spider, and exposing the corruption at its roots. They moved as shadows, two perfectly synchronized forces against the rising tide of illicit activity. Naruto, with his uncanny stealth and sensory abilities, pinpointed guard positions, identified weaknesses, and subtly disabled security measures. Ryu, with her unparalleled agility and silent takedowns, neutralized perimeter threats with brutal efficiency. They moved through the labyrinthine warehouse district, a deadly, silent ballet of infiltration. Inside the main warehouse, the Silken Spider, a portly man with beady eyes and a cruel smile, was overseeing the loading of crates filled with ancient, pulsating artifacts onto heavily guarded wagons. Around him stood a dozen heavily armed guards and a pair of battle-hardened level 3 adventurers, mercenaries loyal only to gold. Suddenly, a loud CRA shish echoed from the far end of the warehouse. The guards tensed, turning their attention. It was a diversion. In that same instant, Naruto moved. He didn't use flashy jutsu or overwhelming power. He used misdirection, precision, and a profound understanding of human reaction. He appeared behind the two level 3 adventurers, a flicker of movement too fast for their eyes. With two swift, almost imperceptible strikes, he delivered precise ether weave impacts to their necks, not to kill, but to temporarily paralyze their nervous systems. They crumpled to the ground, unconscious before they could even scream. Ryu, taking advantage of the chaos and the fallen adventurers, swept in like a gale. Her daggers flashed, swiftly disarming and incapacitating the remaining guards with non-lethal, yet highly effective, strikes. Within seconds, the entire warehouse was neutralized, the spider's security detail lying in neat, unconscious piles. The silken spider, frozen in terror, stared at Naruto, then at Ryu, his face pale. Who are you? You can't do this. I have connections, influence. Naruto walked up to him, his presence radiating a quiet authority that stripped the man of all arrogance. Your connections won't help you tonight, Spider. Your influence just ran out. He then, with practiced ease, bound the man securely, and began systematically searching the warehouse, identifying forbidden relics and cataloging the illicit goods with meticulous care. Ryu watched him, her respect deepening. He was not just a fighter. He was a master strategist, an investigator, and a force of justice. He didn't just defeat his enemies, he dismantled their entire operation. You are thorough, she commented, a rare hint of approval in her voice. Naruto grinned, a tired but satisfied expression on his face. If you're going to clean up a mess, you might as well do it right, Now, let's get this information to the guild, and make sure the folks the spider exploited get their due. As the first hints of dawn touched the eastern sky, Naruto and Ryu, having secured the warehouse and sent an anonymous tip to the guild who would find a convenient tip-off and take credit for the bust, stood overlooking the city. The festival's lights still glittered below, a stark contrast to the darkness they had just fought. Thank you, Naruto, Ryu said, her voice soft, almost inaudible. For helping, for trusting me. It was a profound admission for her. Naruto simply nodded. No thanks needed, Ryu. We're on the same side. Always have been, I think. And you're a damn good ally to have. He offered her a warm, genuine smile. Maybe next time, we can get some of that ramen I was telling Belle about. My treat. Ryu actually chuckled, a low, melodic sound. Perhaps, one day, when this city truly sleeps easy. The offer wasn't just for food, it was an invitation to a different kind of connection, a subtle bridge built between two solitary souls. The gale had found a quiet storm to ride with. High above, in the opulent silence of Folkvanger, Freya watched it all unfold. Her scrying pool glowed with the retreating forms of Naruto and Ryu. Her golden eyes were unblinking, utterly captivated. He does not merely fight for good, Otar, she murmured, her voice a silken thread of fascination. He is good. He brings light to the darkest corners, not by force, but by quiet, unwavering conviction. He unites the fragmented, restores what is broken. She saw the subtle shift in Ryu's demeanor, the rare warmth in her eyes. It was a profound connection, forged not by allure, but by shared purpose. Her own charm, her fascination, had never truly been about goodness. It was about beauty, about the spark of souls that she sought to collect. But Naruto, he was showing her a different kind of beauty. The beauty of selfless action, of genuine connection, of an unbreakable moral compass. Her previous attempts to tempt him with power, with subtle influence, had been clumsy. He simply wasn't motivated by such things. He cleanses the city, Otar, as if it were a wound on his own body, Freya observed, a strange, unfamiliar pang in her own divine chest. He is pure, untainted, and he remains utterly indifferent to my own allure. Her lips curved into a faint, almost melancholic smile. Perhaps my methods have been crude. Perhaps the greatest beauty cannot be taken, cannot be charmed. Perhaps it can only be observed and admired. Her obsession was deepening, twisting into a more complex, almost reverent form. She desired his soul more than ever, but not to possess and break it. Now, she wanted to understand its unbroken nature, to see if its light could truly remain unextinguished, even under her direct scrutiny. The game had evolved. It was no longer just about acquiring him. It was about witnessing the full, magnificent spectrum of his existence. The festival lights of Orario shimmered below, unaware of the profound shifts occurring in the hearts of a few, brought about by the subtle, unwavering force that was Naruto Uzumaki. The dawn of a new era was truly beginning. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. The Shadows of Orario and a Goddess's Grief. The vibrant tapestry of the Festival of Heroes had faded, leaving behind the usual rhythms of Orario. Yet, beneath the familiar hum of commerce and adventure, a deeper tremor resonated. It wasn't the rumble of the dungeon, nor the clash of familia banners, but the quiet despair of those trapped in the city's unseen corners. For Naruto Uzumaki, these shadows were as real, and as deserving of light, as any monster in the labyrinth below. His intuition, sharpened by a lifetime of navigating moral complexities, had picked up on the subtle scent of desperation and injustice clinging to the colder, older parts of the city. He found himself increasingly drawn to the East District's forgotten alleys and dilapidated tenements, places where the sun struggled to reach and hope struggled to survive. Here, families huddled in squalor, preyed upon by loan sharks, petty criminals, and the insidious indifference of the powerful. The guild, focused on the grand challenges of the dungeon and the political maneuvering of the gods, often overlooked these mundane, yet deeply corrosive, forms of suffering. One crisp morning, as a thin mist clung to the cobblestones, Naruto was walking through a particularly bleak alleyway when he heard it, the choked sobs of a child. He followed the sound to a crumbling tenement building, its windows boarded up, its walls scarred with neglect. Inside, a young girl, no older than 7, sat weeping amongst overturned furniture, clutching a tattered doll. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her small body trembled. "Hey there, little one," Naruto said gently, crouching down to her level. His voice was soft, devoid of any menace. "What's wrong? Where's your family?" The girl flinched, startled, then looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear and despair. They took them. The bad men. They said Mama and Papa didn't pay, and they took them. For the mines." She pointed vaguely towards the darker, industrial areas of the city. Naruto's easygoing demeanor vanished, replaced by a chilling stillness. Forced labor. It was an abhorrent practice, usually hidden beneath layers of dead and legal loopholes, but it was alive and festering in Orario. He knew this child wasn't alone. He had seen the subtle signs, heard the hushed whispers of missing persons, of families abruptly vanishing. He had merely needed a direct witness. "Mines, huh," Naruto murmured, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't worry, little one. We'll get them back. Can you tell me what the bad men looked like? Or where they took your mama and papa?" The girl, sensing the calm, unwavering promise in his voice, slowly began to recount what she knew, her words punctuated by sniffles. Naruto listened patiently, every detail etched into his memory. His investigation began. Naruto didn't storm the suspected locations. Instead, he moved like a shadow himself, using his Pathfinder's grace to navigate the labyrinthine slums unnoticed. He observed, he listened, he pieced together the fragments of despair into a coherent picture of a vast, inhumane network. It was far larger than he had anticipated, reaching into the highest echelons of the city's merchant class, protected by corrupt officials and ruthless enforcers. At the heart of it, he suspected, was a powerful, elusive figure known only as the Overseer, a faceless entity rumored to control the darkest elements of Orario's labor force. His search for information, however, led him to a familiar face. He found Ryu Lion in her usual haunt, a quiet, almost forgotten tea house known as the Benevolent Mistress, where she occasionally offered help to those who sought her out. She was serving tea, her expression serene, yet her eyes held the perpetual sadness of one who had seen too much. "Ryu," Naruto greeted, stepping into the quiet establishment. The other patrons, mostly weary laborers and low-level adventurers seeking solace, barely registered his presence. Ryu looked up, her gaze steady. Naruto, you were far from the dungeon today, and you carry the scent of desperation. Forced labor, Naruto stated, getting straight to the point. He explained what he had learned, the child's story, the growing evidence of the Overseer's network. It's widespread, and it's sanctioned, or at least ignored, by powerful people. I need intel. You know this city's shadows better than anyone. Have you heard of the Overseer? Ryu's knuckles widened around the teacup she held. Her eyes, usually just sad, now burned with a cold, righteous fury. The Overseer. Yes, a ghost, a monster. He is responsible for the suffering of countless souls. He deals in flesh, in despair, binding families through insurmountable debts, then forcing them into his wretched mines, his brutal factories. He destroyed an entire district once, driving its people into slavery, all to line his pockets. Her voice was low, trembling with suppressed rage. Her own past, the tragedy of the Astria familia, was rooted in the very kind of injustice he described. You have history with him, Naruto observed, his voice empathetic. He saw the pain in her eyes, the familiar echoes of grief. Ryu nodded, her gaze distant. My familia, we fought against such darkness. But the forces arrayed against us were too great. We fell. Her voice was barely a whisper. He is protected, Naruto. By more than just muscle. By wealth. By influence. By fear. Fear is a cage, Naruto said, his voice firm. And cages can be broken. We're going to break this one. For that little girl. For all the others. And for those you couldn't save before. He met her gaze, his blue eyes unwavering. I'm not asking you to forget your past, Ryu. I'm asking you to help us build a better future. A future where no one has to suffer like that child. Will you help me expose him? Bring him down. Ryu looked at him, truly looked at him. He wasn't offering a quick fix or a simple act of vengeance. He was offering a chance at true justice, a chance to mend a broken part of the world. He understood her pain, yet he didn't exploit it. He respected her agency, her strength, even as he offered his own. He operates from a hidden estate in the North District, disguised as a legitimate trading hub. Ryu finally said, her voice resolute. His strongest guards are level 4 adventurers. He has a network of informants. But I know the hidden passages. I know the weaknesses of his system. I have been gathering information for years, waiting for a chance. Then the chance is now, Naruto declared, a determined glint in his eye. We'll move tonight. Your knowledge, my unique skills. We'll hit him where it hurts. His wallet, his reputation, and his control over those he exploits. Ryu nodded, a flicker of something akin to hope, or perhaps righteous anticipation, sparking in her usually mournful eyes. Let the gale lead the way then, Naruto. And let the light follow. The Overseer's estate was a fortress, cloaked in the opulence of false legitimacy. High walls, intricate magical wards, and heavily armed guards patrolled its perimeter. It was designed to repel frontal assaults and conceal the unspeakable activities within. But Naruto and Ryu weren't planning a frontal assault. Under the cloak of a moonless night, they moved. Ryu, silent as a whisper, guided them through the hidden sewer tunnels and forgotten alleys she had painstakingly mapped over years. Her agility was breathtaking, her knowledge of the estate's vulnerabilities encyclopedic. She disarmed traps, bypassed magical barriers, and neutralized outer guards with practiced ease, using non-lethal strikes to ensure they wouldn't raise an alarm. Naruto, moving in perfect synchronization, used his Pathfinder's grace to amplify their stealth, making them virtually undetectable. His sage's insight helped him predict guard rotations, locate hidden surveillance points, and even sense the faint magical signatures of the hidden vaults and administrative offices within the estate. His ether weave provided subtle diversions. A faint rustle of leaves, a momentary flicker of light, drawing attention away from their true approach. They slipped into the estate's inner sanctum, a lavish, yet chillingly sterile administrative office. Here, the Overseer's true operations were laid bare. Ledgers meticulously detailed the forced labor, the exorbitant debts, the illicit profits. Maps pinpoint hidden mines and factories where the enslaved toiled. Communications logs revealed the names of corrupt officials and influential merchants who were complicit in the scheme. It was a goldmine of incriminating evidence. This is it, Ryu whispered, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. The proof. everything needed to shatter his network. Suddenly, the doors burst open. The overseer himself, a gaunt, predatory man in silk robes, stood there, flanked by his two most formidable enforcers, a burly Goliath mercenary and a cunning dark elf assassin, both powerful level 4 adventurers. The overseer's face was contorted in a sneer. "So, the Gale finally shows her face," the overseer hissed, his eyes glinting with malice. "And you bring a companion. Foolish. You won't leave here alive." He had been alerted by a subtle, magical tripwire they had narrowly missed. "You won't be taking anyone else, Overseer," Naruto stated, stepping forward, placing himself between Ryu and their opponents. His voice was calm, utterly unwavering. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Goliath roared, charging with a massive axe. The dark elf melted into the shadows, a poisoned dagger gleaming faintly in her hand. Naruto didn't move, he simply extended a hand towards the charging Goliath. A powerful gust of wind, channeled directly through his ether weave, slammed into the Goliath's axe, deflecting its trajectory. Simultaneously, Naruto spun, his foot lashing out with blurring speed. It wasn't a kick to inflict damage, but a precise, focused strike to the Goliath's armored knee, designed to disrupt its stance and balance. The Goliath stumbled, roaring in frustration. Ryu, seeing her chance, didn't hesitate. She darted forward, her daggers flashing, engaging the dark elf assassin, a blur of agile combat. Naruto focused on the Goliath. He moved with impossible fluidity, dodging axe swings, parrying with open palms, each counter-strike infused with a subtle burst of ether that vibrated through the Goliath's immense body, disrupting its internal rhythm. He wasn't trying to beat it into submission, he was systematically breaking its flow, its balance, its ability to maintain offensive. "You rely on brute force," Naruto calmly observed as he effortlessly evaded a clumsy overhead chop. "But brute force without precision is just wasted effort." With a final, focused palm strike to the Goliath's solar plexus, he unleashed a concentrated wave of ether. The Goliath gasped, its eyes rolling back, and it collapsed, unconscious, a faint, almost musical hum echoing from its chest. As Naruto turned, he saw Ryu locked in a deadly dance with the dark elf. The assassin was fast, her movements deceptive, her poisoned blade a constant threat. Ryu, however, was a whirlwind of controlled fury, her eyes alight with righteous anger. She moved with a desperate grace, driven by years of suppressed grief. The dark elf, seizing a moment's opening, thrust her poisoned dagger towards Ryu's exposed side. It was a swift, lethal strike. Before the dagger could connect, a shimmering, azure barrier of ether flared into existence around Ryu, deflecting the blade with a harsh clang. Naruto had intervened, his ether weave creating a precise defensive shield. "A little help never hurts, does it?" Naruto said, his voice quiet. Ryu, startled by the sudden intervention, felt a surge of adrenaline, but also a profound, unexpected relief. She spun, empowered by the momentary defense, and delivered a precise kick that slammed into the dark elf's jaw. The assassin crumpled, unconscious. The overseer, who had watched his elite enforcers fall with horrified disbelief, tried to scramble away. But Naruto was already there, his hand on the man's shoulder. "Going somewhere?" Naruto asked, his voice devoid of humor. "We're not done yet. You have a lot of explaining to do. And a lot of restitution to make." He then, with ruthless efficiency, began to meticulously document everything in the office, using a small, specialized camera-like device he produced from a sealed pouch on his belt. Ryu, still breathing heavily, stared at the sheer audacity and competence of the man. He hadn't just fought, he had orchestrated. He had planned, protected, and ensured undeniable proof. He truly was a different breed of hero. Meanwhile, in the tranquil, ancient chamber beneath Babel, Oranos, the god of the dungeon, felt a profound ripple. It was the crushing defeat of a network that had plagued Orario's shadows for decades, brought down not by gods or first-class adventurers, but by a single individual and his righteous Gale. Oranos had always watched, rarely intervened, but he understood the delicate balance of justice and injustice in the city. And now, a new force had arrived, tilting that balance. His vast, ancient eyes, usually closed in contemplation, opened slightly. He sensed the reverberations of Naruto's unwavering will in the city, like a bell chiming a new truth. Back in Folkvanger, Freya watched the entire operation unfold through her scrying pool, her golden eyes wide, her breath held. She saw the despair of the child, the quiet resolve in Naruto's face, the burning pain and subsequent righteous fury in Ryu's. She witnessed the precise, almost surgical dismantling of the Overseer's forces, the effortless efficiency with which Naruto defeated the Goliath, and his timely intervention to protect Ryu. And for the first time in a very long time, Freya felt something profound shift within her. She had always sought the spark of souls, the raw essence of their desires, their beauty, their ambition. But Naruto, his soul spark wasn't defined by a singular desire. It was defined by its light, by its inherent goodness, its unwavering commitment to justice, its profound empathy. He didn't just seek to acquire power. He sought to use it, to share it, to uplift others. Her initial, almost playful obsession with acquiring his beautiful soul had been crude, a reflection of her own limited understanding. She had seen beauty in strength, in passion, in raw power. But Naruto was showing her the beauty of compassion, the beauty of selflessness, the beauty of an unbreakable moral compass. He didn't just shine, he made others shine brighter around him. She saw the raw grief in Ryu's eyes as she gathered the incriminating documents, and she saw the quiet comfort Naruto offered, not through words, but through his simple, unyielding presence. He hadn't charmed Ryu, he had earned her trust, her respect, her unwavering loyalty through shared purpose and genuine empathy. A single, translucent tear, something rarely, if ever, seen from the goddess of beauty, traced a path down Freya's perfect cheek. It was not a tear of sadness, but one of profound realization. He does not seek to break souls, Otar. Freya whispered, her voice husky with emotion. He seeks to heal them. To free them. To make them whole. She looked at the image of Naruto, calmly securing the evidence, his expression one of quiet satisfaction. And he does so without a single drop of arrogance. He is magnificent. Her obsession was no longer just a desire for possession. It was evolving into a profound reverence. She desired to witness the full potential of his light, to understand its source, to bask in its glow. The game was no longer about making him hers. It was about being worthy of observing him, of understanding such pure, untainted beauty. Her grief, her long-held loneliness, began to stir, recognizing in him a profound antidote to her own divine emptiness. He has shown me a new form of beauty, Otar, Freya breathed. Her golden eyes alight with a newfound, almost spiritual, longing. A beauty I had forgotten. A beauty that cannot be taken, but must be earned. Understood. The night outside Folkvanger was still, but within the heart of the goddess of beauty, a profound, transformative shift had begun. The shadows of Orario had been illuminated, and with them, the very soul of a powerful deity. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6. The Summit of Gods and Immortals Resolve. The air in the guild headquarters Grand Assembly Hall crackled with a different kind of power than the Dungeon. Ens Ra Mana, the city's street-level conflicts. Here, the power was diplomatic, political, and subtly divine. High-ranking guild officials, powerful familia heads, and even several gods in their human forms gathered around a massive, ornate table. The polished marble gleamed under intricate chandeliers, reflecting the tense expressions of those assembled. The reason for this unusual congregatio was a series of alarming reports from the lower levels of the dungeon. Unprecedented monster mutations, strange geological shifts, and chilling whispers of a newly awakened, calamity beast, from Bay. OND. The known strata had thrown Orario's leadership into a rare state of collective anxiety. The usual solutions, more adventurers, bigger expeditions, seemed insufficient. They needed a new approach, and a new kind of leader. Naruto Uzumaki, summoned by Guild Master Royman himself, felt the weight of their collective gazes as he entered the hall. He wasn't dressed in formal attire, preferring his usual practical clothes. Yet his presence commanded attention. His azure eyes swept over the assembly, recognizing Loki, the mischievous goddess of the Loki familia, and Ganesha, the boisterous, elephant-headed deity of the Ganesha familia, among others. He even caught a fleeting glimpse of Freya's golden eyes from a secluded, elevated balcony, though she remained in the shadows, an unseen observer. Naruto Uzumaki, Royman announced, his voice formal and somewhat strained. Thank you for attending this critical summit. We have gathered to discuss the unprecedented threats emerging from the dungeon. Your recent successes, particularly your unique insights and methods, have convinced us that your input is vital. Naruto simply nodded, taking a seat offered at the far end of the table, across from the assembled luminaries. He could feel the undercurrents, suspicion, curiosity, hope, and the subtle jockeying for influence among the gods. Loki, ever direct, leaned forward, her red eyes fixed on Naruto. "All right, kid, rumor has it you're the one who can sniff out trouble like a hound on a trail. We've got bigger fish to fry than glorified goblins now. The Juggernaut is what some are calling it. A monster born of pure malice, beyond anything seen in centuries. What's your take on it, hero?" Her tone was a mix of playful challenge and genuine concern. Naruto remained unruffled. "The Juggernaut, huh?" He leaned back slightly, his gaze thoughtful. "I've felt the tremors. The dungeon's trying to shake something loose, something old and angry. It's not just a monster, it's a symptom. The dungeon itself is changing, adapting. The usual hack and slash isn't going to cut it." A murmur went through the room. His blunt assessment, devoid of technical jargon or overly dramatic pronouncements, cut straight to the core. "And what would cut it, then, mortal?" A haughty voice drawled. It was Dionysus, a minor god known for his pomposity and influence among some of the wealthier familias. "Are you suggesting we simply talk to a calamity beast? Your unique methods are hardly proven on this scale." Naruto's gaze shifted to Dionysus, his eyes calm, yet possessing an undeniable weight. "No, not talk to it, but understand it. Every opponent has a weakness, a pattern, a reason for its existence. This Juggernaut isn't just a beast, it's an aberration. It implies something deeper has been disturbed. We need to go beyond simply fighting it. We need to investigate its origin, understand its patterns, and find a way to neutralize it without destroying half the dungeon in the process. And that means unity." He scanned the faces around the table, his voice gaining a quiet force that resonated through the grand hall. "Right now, Orario's strength is fragmented. Familias compete, gods hold grudges. But this threat, it doesn't care about your fauna rank or your divine allegiance. It will consume all of us. If we are to win, we need to work together. Share information, coordinate strategies, pool resources. Not just in combat, but in research, in support, in every aspect. No more petty rivalries. No more withholding information. We are one city, facing one threat." Silence. His words, direct and unvarnished, struck a nerve. Many gods exchanged uncomfortable glances. Unity, cooperation, these were foreign concepts in a city built on competition and the pursuit of individual glory. Ganesha, usually boisterous, cleared his throat. He speaks sense. Unity, that's what Ganesha believes in. Friendship, camaraderie. He boomed, his enthusiasm echoing. Loki narrowed her eyes, studying Naruto. She could see no deception, no personal agenda. Only a profound, almost naive, belief in cooperation. "Easy for you to say, kid," she scoffed, though a flicker of approval was in her eyes. "You don't have 100 grudges to carry. You don't have centuries of history weighing you down." "Perhaps not," Naruto conceded, his voice gentle. "But if those grudges mean the end of Orario, what good are they? History shouldn't be a cage, Loki-sama. It should be a lesson." He looked directly at her. "Your familia is powerful. They're disciplined. Imagine what we could achieve if that power was fully aligned. Not just for your own glory, but for the good of everyone." Rivria Lyos Alf, the Nine Hell, and Fin Diemni, the Braver, both from the Loki familia, observed Naruto with keen interest. Rivria, with her immense wisdom, recognized the profound truth in his words. Fin, the pragmatic strategist, saw the undeniable logic of his proposed unified command. They had been trying to achieve similar levels of cooperation for years, with limited success. This mortal, this level 1 enigma, was achieving it with simple, direct conviction. "What do you propose, then, Mr. Uzumaki?" Royman finally asked, sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere. He had never seen so many powerful figures so genuinely unsettled by a single mortal's unwavering presence. "A joint expedition, yes," Naruto began, his voice firm and clear, "but led by a council of the strongest, with full transparency. No hidden agendas, no solo glory hunts. My familia will contribute, and I will lead from the front. But everyone has a role. The guild provides full logistical support and intel. The gods, your blessings are power, but your wisdom and guidance are just as vital. Lend us your knowledge, your strategic insights. Not just your might. He paused, then added, his gaze sweeping over the assembled gods, a subtle challenge in his tone. And if we face a truly unprecedented threat, one that requires a level of sacrifice or risk beyond what mortals should bear, then the gods should be prepared to intervene directly, not just with their blessings, but with their full, divine power, to protect the world they descended to enjoy. A tense silence descended. For a mortal to openly suggest gods intervene with their full power, breaking the ancient taboo of not using their divine authority directly, was audacious. Bordering on blasphemous. Loki bristled, her red eyes flashing. Watch your tongue, boy. We don't just intervene on a whim. There are rules, consequences. And what are those consequences, Loki-sama? Naruto countered, his voice steady. More important than the survival of Orario. More important than the lives of your children. If your rules mean the world burns, then perhaps your rules need to change. He met her fiery gaze head-on, completely unafraid. The sheer audacity, coupled with his sincere belief, momentarily stunned Loki into silence. Meanwhile, in her secluded balcony, Freya watched the entire exchange with an almost breathless intensity. Her golden eyes were fixed on Naruto, her perfect lips slightly parted. She had witnessed countless debates, countless power struggles among her peers. She had seen their vanity, their pride, their petty squabbles. But she had never seen a mortal stand against them with such conviction, such unwavering moral clarity. He challenged their rules, their traditions, their very definition of divine authority, not with aggression, but with simple, unadulterated truth. He exposed their hypocrisy, their self-imposed limitations, without seeking to insult. He simply laid bare the path of reason and empathy. He does not fear them, Ottar, Freya whispered, her voice a silken thread of awe. He sees through their facades. He speaks of unity and self-sacrifice, concepts so alien to them, yet he makes them listen. He makes them think. She saw Loki's visible frustration, but also the subtle shift in her posture, grudging respect that was replacing her usual disdain. She saw the calculating gleam in Finn's eyes, recognizing the strategic brilliance of Naruto's proposals. She saw Riveria's quiet nod of approval. Freya, who had always viewed the souls of mortals as beautiful playthings, sparks to collect and arrange, was now witnessing a soul so luminous, so unwavering, that it transcended her very understanding of beauty. Her fascination had always been about bending wills, about imposing her desire. But with Naruto, there was nothing to bend. His will was an unmovable force, a clear stream that simply flowed around any obstacle, carving its own path. A profound, almost agonizing longing stirred within her. She desired him, yes, but no longer just to possess his light. Now, she desired to understand it, to be illuminated by it, to bathe in its unwavering brilliance. The thought of him being swayed by another god, or even another mortal, caused a sharp, visceral pang of possessiveness, far beyond what she normally felt. He is the purest expression of will I have ever encountered, Freya murmured, her voice laced with a raw emotion she rarely displayed. To see such unblemished clarity, it is intoxicating. The summit continued for hours, a tense negotiation. Naruto held his ground, unwavering in his conditions. He refused to be relegated to a mere weapon. He insisted on full access to guild resources, complete transparency in intelligence sharing, and a joint command structure that emphasized cooperation over hierarchy. He pushed for a commitment from the gods to consider unprecedented action if the threat escalated. Ultimately, Royman, recognizing the unprecedented nature of the threat and the undeniable power of Naruto's convictions, conceded. Very well, Mr. Uzumaki, the guild master announced, his voice tinged with both exasperation and a reluctant admiration. Your terms are accepted. A joint expedition will be formed. You will serve as a lead strategist, with direct reporting lines to myself and a designated council of familia heads. All available intelligence will be shared, and a contingency plan for divine intervention will be drafted, should it become necessary. He paused, then looked directly at Naruto. This is a tremendous responsibility, Mr. Uzumaki. The fate of Orario may well rest on your shoulders. Naruto simply nodded, his expression resolute. I understand, Guild Master. And I'll do my best. For Orario. For everyone here. His gaze flickered towards the hidden balcony, a faint, almost imperceptible acknowledgement passing between his azure eyes and Freya's golden ones. He had felt her presence throughout the meeting, a silent, powerful observer. He didn't know the depth of her fascination, but he sensed its undeniable intensity. As the summit concluded, and the gods and familia heads dispersed, many were still reeling from the encounter. They had expected a powerful adventurer, perhaps arrogant, perhaps simple-minded. They had met a force of nature, guided by an unwavering moral compass and an intellect that cut through centuries of tradition. Loki, pausing near the exit, glanced back at Naruto, who was calmly discussing logistical details with a bewildered Aina. That kid, she muttered to Finn, he's either the most naive fool I've ever met, or the most dangerous one. And I can't quite figure out which. Finn, ever the pragmatist, offered a rare, thoughtful smile. Perhaps, Loki-sama, he is simply the one Orario needs. A force that understands cooperation better than conflict. And he holds to his convictions with a strength that could shame us all. Later that evening, after the adrenaline of the summit had faded, Naruto found himself walking through the peaceful streets of Orario, heading back to the Hestia familia church. He passed a quiet temple dedicated to Hestia, its small hearth flickering with a warm, inviting glow. He paused, feeling a profound sense of contentment. He had faced down powerful gods and rigid institutions, not with violence, but with conviction. He had secured the means to protect the city, and to fight for its future, on his own terms. He thought of the look in Freya's eyes, the unspoken intensity of her gaze. He still didn't understand the full depth of her interest, but he felt its pull, a strange, undeniable gravity. He knew she was watching him, always. And for some reason, he found that he didn't entirely mind. Her fascination, while unsettling, also felt strangely honest, in its own way. He entered the Hestia familia home, greeted by the warm glow of the hearth and the comforting scent of a simple meal. Hestia rushed to meet him, her eyes shining with pride. Naruto, you were amazing, she gushed, clutching his arm. Bell-kun told me, you stood up to all of them. You're truly the best, my wonderful child. Naruto chuckled, patting her head gently. Just did what I thought was right, Hestia-sama. It's going to be a tough fight ahead, but we'll face it together. All of us. He looked around at the small, thriving familia he had chosen, the place where he truly belonged. This was his purpose. This was his family. As the hearth fire crackled softly, casting dancing shadows on the walls, Naruto felt a quiet resolve solidify within him. He was ready. For the juggernaut, for the dungeon's deepening mysteries, and for the complex dance he found himself caught in. Between the will of gods and the fate of Orario, his path was clear, guided by an unwavering moral compass, and he would walk it, no matter the challenges, no matter the temptations. Chapter 6 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.